The thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your host, Jason Beck, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Tell him. See, even your dog's a conservative, Todd. Telling you. Well, good morning, everybody. That's right. It is Tuesday, November 18th. And today is, oh, you guys are going to love this. It's National Princess Day.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm. We'll finally get treated like the princess that you are.
You're
My
funny.
goat's name.
Yeah, very, 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 very funny. Very funny. Very funny, Todd. Very cute. Very cute. Let's
pride
see.
myself on good comedy.
Oh, yeah, I bet. It's also, you know what else it is, Todd? It is also Mickey Mouse's birthday today.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, right?
Happy birthday to the mouse.
Happy birthday,
Yes.
Mickey Mouse.
Exactly.
Speaking of fondling children.
Whoa, easy there. Easy.
It's not a priest.
Easy there. And it's also National Vichyssoise Day.
If only I knew what that was, I could make a comment.
Yep. I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet.
What do you do on Natural Vichyssoise Day?
It's a soup, Todd. It is a soup. So, you want me to tell you more about the soup? Give me 1 second here. I'll tell you all about it. National Vichyssoise Day. Okay, you get ready for this, Todd. November 18th recognizes a cold soup that is loved by many. I didn't realize any cold soup was loved by anybody, but it is National Vichyssoise Day, made with thick and pureed leeks, onions, potatoes, cream, and chicken stock. Vichyssoise is traditionally served cold, though sometimes is eaten hot. Culinary historians debate the origin of Vichyssoise, and however, the man most credited with the renovation of the soup is French chef Louis Diat. Back in 1950, New York Magazine interviewed Diat, who was the chief at the Ritz-Carlton in New York City back then. Look at that, Todd.
Good stuff, bro.
Cold soup, bro. Cold soup. I'm not.
Gazpacho.
Yeah, I'm not messing with
Yeah.
cold soup, bro. I'm good with all that.
Yeah,
I
not a
don't think I
big
need to
fan.
try it.
You would eat it? You would eat it? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that anything like Vichyssoise?
That's
that
it.
what they used
Yes,
to
that's
call
how
it?
you. Yes, that's it. Yes, that's how you say it. Yes.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. That is exactly how you would actually pronounce that. I probably definitely murdered that, but nonetheless, thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast, and please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above and down below to see exactly where we live on the internet, and we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, X, Instagram, Facebook, Kick, as well as on our very own website, www.high9news.com. So welcome to everyone join us from any one of those platforms. And man, you guys, I have a fun little story for you because marijuana operators are not waiting for federal hemp ban to halt THCA sales. That's right. Hemp THC products became prohibited under federal law in late 2026 under the spending bill signed by President Donald J. Trump last week. But some regulated cannabis merchants are waiting until then to stamp out the hemp sector competition, as a lawsuit filed on Thursday by some Missouri marijuana operators. A Satori of Kansas City-based cannabis companies filed a civil lawsuit November 13th against a roster of local smoke shops and other merchants selling so-called THCA flower, according to the Kansas City Star. The THCA flower loophole, which some states have addressed with their own hemp THC regulation, is explicitly closed by the federal spending bill Trump signed. The lawsuit, filed in state court in Jackson County, asked a judge to award damages and to oppose a permanent injunction halting the hemp operators' businesses, the newspaper reported. In a quote, "Licensed dispensaries are following Missouri's rules and regulations. They're paying taxes, paying licensing fees, testing their products, age gating," said attorney Chris McCuo, who's representing the plaintiffs, according to the Star. Meanwhile, those totally unlicensed Temu versions of dispensaries are making millions by saying what they're selling isn't marijuana. Marijuana operators to seek tens of millions in damages from the hemp THC guys because McHugh's clients are seeking tens of millions of dollars in damages, he told the newspaper. He also plans to file more lawsuits across the state on behalf of other licensed cannabis retailers, he said. And the legal action follows a report compiled by a marijuana industry trade association that claims that 96% of the hemp THC products sold in Missouri are illegal marijuana. Hemp operators are exploiting the so-called 2018 Farm Bill loophole, that's total BS, but whatever, to sell intoxicating marijuana products outside state-regulated channels, Mo Can Trade said. And Missouri is still considered one of the legal cannabis industry's success stories. The state recorded a $1.5 billion in legal sales in 2024 in the market's second year of operation, and that's more sales than what was reported in New York State, despite a much larger population. THCA, hemp-derived THC, is going to be banned federally, but what happens next, you guys, because the lawsuits also come on the heels of the spending bill passed by Congress last week that redefines hemp under the federal law to ban most of the $28.3 billion national hemp industry. The spending bill redefines hemp as only the plant cannabis sativa and all derivatives, extracts, cannabinoids with a total tetrahydrocannabinol concentration, including tetracannabinolic acid, that's known as THCA, of not more than 0.3% on a dry weight basis. That would close the THC loophole that some merchants use to sell THCA flower online and outside of state-regulated marijuana channels. However, it's unclear who would enforce the new rules and whether states that already regulate hemp-derived THC would ignore the federal ban. The nationwide THCA flower market by itself is worth hundreds of millions of dollars annually, according to one estimate. And also removed from the definition of hemp are cannabinoids that are not capable of being naturally produced by the cannabis plant, which would include HHC, and where synthesized or manufactured outside of the plant, which would include THCP, you guys. Well. Lawsuits flying everywhere. Missouri, these guys think they're going to stop this hemp movement before it even takes a hold next year. These guys are tripping. I think these guys are barking up the wrong tree, but I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this.
Why are they barking up the wrong tree?
Because
the only way to change things is with a fucking lawsuit.
They don't have justification. They don't have justification, Todd.
I think it's a little premature is what I think. I think there's definitely a possibility for lawsuits. I think they should happen. But I think we need to just put on the brakes a little and wait and watch and see what develops.
Exactly. Yeah, these people are all jumping to conclusions.
I'm actually not surprised that this hasn't happened earlier, or I am surprised this hasn't happened earlier in relation to, and it's probably just about the dispensaries wanting to spend the money on it. Mm-hmm. You know, the DEA stance on the formula, the many different agencies' stances on formula. The formula. When I talk about the formula, I'm talking about the THCA times 0.877 plus Delta 9 to get the 0.3 under the 0.3% threshold. So I'm kind of surprised it hasn't happened previously that one of them have gone on the offensive on it, other than just spending money in trying to get these bills passed and created.
Interesting. I'm surprised. I just feel like I feel like this is a little, little early. Like they're going to blow their load. They're going to get an unfavorable judgment because it's not actually banned as of yet, and so therefore they don't really have a justification for filing this, Michael.
And again, the DEA has said that it's banned already from the beginning, and depending on how a judge interprets the Farm Bill, I clearly think that they could determine that, oh, well, no, you have to have a post-decarboxylated method for testing. That is the formula as provided by the USDA rules. So we're going to say that this is non-compliant hemp. I don't see a stretch in that happening by a federal court at all.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
We've been talking about this conflict between the two issues, and sometimes only these conflicts, this gray area, and just because you can say it's a gray area, I think it then becomes potentially challengeable. And if it is a gray area or a loophole, I think courts could easily conclude that they have to read the statute in para materiae, which means like all in context together with one meaning and intent. And I think they could easily find the conflict between those two sections of the statute.
I mean, but in order to prove that there was no loophole, what a company is going to have to basically say, hey, we want to depose Rand Paul, and we want to depose a couple other senators to, discuss the intent of the law when it was created.
So and I mean the question is, number one, sorry, Todd, just one.
That's all right. Go ahead.
Is that whether or not the plain language of the Farm Bill says that or not? So if a court finds the plain language says that, then it never goes to necessarily the second step of intent. And just like I think they have in the majority of courts throughout the country, that hey, listen, the states are not preempted from doing anything with regards to cannabis. I mean, outside of production, which, reading the Farm Bill, I read it as it clearly says the states can regulate production more strictly, which means which is defined in the USD rules as the cultivation of the plant. So, but yet they have gone on, and that's what all the lawsuits have been, trying to say that the feds preempt the states is by the interstate commerce laws, by the not preventing transportation of hemp products throughout the states, are incidents of, and the fact that they have to get it approved by the feds, all to me leads to it should be preempted, and the states shouldn't have been able to be doing all these separate laws, changing the definition of hemp, etc. At all.
Interesting.
So I think a lot of these things, again, this is going to be now litigated and make a determination, just like it is here in Florida.
Yeah.
There's an appeal in the 5th District Court of Appeal whether or not THCA and the department already, even though the legislature has specifically denied passing it, can enforce the THCA formula. So it's crazy.
Wow. Go for it, Todd. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say that it's definitely a loophole that has been exploited in the current Farm Bill that allows folks to make a psychoactive chemical out of the not psychoactive hemp product.
Todd, I just don't believe that is a loophole. I don't buy that. I don't buy that language.
Sure,
I think that's prohibitionist rhetoric.
Is Delta 9 THC below 0.3%, right? Which is a horrible definition of hemp. I agree with that, but that is the definition. Right? And if you're testing, THCA or just THC, just THC 8 or THC 9. And you're not testing for Delta 9, then you're not going to get. I mean, Delta 9 doesn't happen, like Michael said, until decarboxylation happens, right? So
exactly.
So testing the THCA and calling it, calling it weed is just a loophole.
It's not a loophole.
These folks are exploiting.
This is not a loophole. That's so disrespectful. So disrespectful to the whole cannabis industry, to the whole cannabis industry.
What do you mean? It's disrespectful.
So disrespectful. Calling it a loophole.
What are you talking about?
It's not a loophole. It's a fast track
that
tunnel.
has created commerce. That has created all of these businesses.
You make it sound like it's so bad.
I would call it a conflict as opposed to a loophole between the statute that's given people the rights to do it. Because I think by the pure definition of hemp, and excluding the tetrahydrocannabinolic acid from the D9 equation, it clearly doesn't include. It shouldn't include THCA in the D9 calculation, right?
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
I don't know. It's just a very interesting screw up.
Mm-hmm.
Why shouldn't it happen in the D9 calculation?
Well, because if you're some, if you could say you can use red and white paint but not blue paint, and then you put red paint in the blue paint to make a different color, is that violating the law and using the red paint in the color?
Yeah, it's
right?
not blue.
So
it's purple.
The loophole is we're not lighting it on fire and we're testing it. And we light it on fire, it converts to Delta 9 and gets people high. That's the loophole.
Oh.
Simple.
Well, and so, yeah, and I understand how you call it a loophole, but I guess we'd have to define loophole.
Mm-hmm.
But it is supposed to be tested, when it's harvested from the plant.
Yep.
In its harvested form, not necessarily in its heated or cooked or final form. So, and again, I think it's a conflict between the definition of hemp, which was inartfully done, or according to one of the drafters not too long ago, they said they did it on purpose.
They did.
Versus,
that's why it's not loophole.
A conflict between the two different definitions. I think clearly it is
right, but it should be tested.
Inartfully written statute.
Right, but all of these products get tested in their final phase. So if you take some,
there's no requirement under federal law for them to do that.
That's correct. There is not.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is products that are regulated, like cannabis, are tested in their final product, right? Because that's when the consumer buys it. That's when you have to prove safety.
I would say,
right? And to not have these rules for hemp is just silly.
No, it's not.
We've talked about this many times on this show.
We shouldn't have that testing rule for cannabis either.
Right? Because
we should. Yeah. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
No, we
Todd.
shouldn't test food or water.
We don't test
gasoline.
Food. We don't test food.
What are you talking about?
We do not test food. Not even close. The cannabis is way more safer than any food product you consume at a grocery store.
I'm not saying that cannabis is tested more rigorously.
Yes,
but we definitely test food. We test water. We test gasoline.
We do not test water.
Alcohol content.
We do not test water. The bottled water industry is the least regulated industry in the entire planet.
Okay, so everything else should be unregulated then. Is that what you're saying?
I'm just saying, hey, we're doing it for everything else that everybody consumes. Why are we so worried about
Republican politics?
Why are we so worried about this? You know what I mean? Seeing as how it's a plant and hasn't killed anybody ever. Just saying.
Well, the answer to that,
just saying,
even though I don't agree with it, is it's a Schedule 1 drug. That's why it's cared about so much. It shouldn't be a Schedule 1 drug.
Well, pretty soon it might not be, Todd. Pretty soon it might not be.
I don't think so. That's going to happen.
Flawed logic on the top of flawed logic, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What the legislature has done with putting it as a Schedule 1 substance, so that we even have to argue about what a plant can and can't, whether or not you can or can't use it. I mean, realistically, I think the testing for potency, I think it's mostly for the patients
no, it's
or
not.
The people.
It's for the marketing, Todd. It's for the marketing, Michael.
For the pesticides and stuff, I don't think it's a necessarily negative thing at all.
No, I'm good. I'm good with pesticide testing.
Microbials? What about all of the shit that grows on top of cannabis?
I'm good with all that. I'm good with all that too.
100%.
THC testing is totally ridiculous and should be totally stopped.
Yeah.
It's pointless.
There are states that their labeling doesn't offer any information other than expiration date, cultivation date, and the THC, CBD, and CBG. And other than that, there's no information. It's all the mandatory safety.
Yeah, and even a lot of those products, they don't necessarily need an expiration date. I don't feel that. I think that's kind of like a a weird one too. You know, I understand a packaging date. That makes sense. I can respect that. You know what I mean? But right. But you know, come on, you guys. Come on. Let's do better.
It was in New Jersey. It was a year, and they've backed it down to 6 months.
Wow.
Which, yeah, I mean, honestly, for the industry, it's a real punch in the throat. However, as a consumer, it's the most beautiful thing, because as they're getting close to the expiration dates, the things are going on sale, and you can get things as low as $12.50 for an eighth of an ounce.
Yeah,
because they're running close
to
the.
It's just it's such a bad problem on that. We're gonna roll into our first commercial.
It really is.
Yes, we'll be right back. Back, you guys. We are back.
Show him the air conditioner that's not working, which is the one in the server room.
The server room air conditioner, right away. Stat, you guys. Well, let me tell you something, Todd. Because GOP lawmakers, they forced Trump into signing the hemp ban. Longtime ally Roger Stone.
Because he's got no spine.
Stop it. GOP political operative Roger Stone says President Donald J. Trump was effectively forced by Republican lawmakers to sign a spending bill that included a ban on hemp products containing THC. Roger Stone, who blasted GOP legislators in a blog post last week over the inclusion of the hemp provisions in an appropriations package Trump signed into law, says he doesn't fault the president personally. I don't either. I'm with Roger on this one. Roger, in a quote, he says, "My criticism is of the Republicans in Congress," he said. In a response to Marijuana Moment's post about the blog, they included this in a provision that the president was forced to sign in order to get the government open again. President Trump is the founder of the modern legal hemp industry in America, which he signed into law. Rogers, what? Yeah, that's true. What? That's 100% true, Todd. It's true, 100% true. You can be a denier all you want, Todd, but that's the truth. Roger Stone, a longtime Trump. Roger Stone, a longtime Trump ally, said in a post on X, says, "My criticism is of the Republicans in Congress. They included this in a provision that the president was forced to sign in order to get the government open again. President Trump is the founder of the modern legal hemp industry in America, which he signed into law." I know that triggers Todd so much, so I had to read it twice. It is the case that Trump, during his first term, signed the 2018 Farm Bill, Todd, which federally legalized hemp and its derivatives. But he didn't call for the crop's legalization as Congress was debating that legislation, and didn't explicitly take credit for creating the industry that policy created, speaking for about 20 minutes at a signing ceremony for the bill at the time without mentioning the hemp reform. It's also the case, though, that a White House spokesperson said prior to a more recent signing of the bill containing the hemp ban that Trump specifically supported the prohibition language, raising questions about Stone's assessment that he was forced into approving it. I actually agree with Stone's assessment, and, I think Todd's story is going to touch more on that, but nonetheless. Asked by a Marijuana Moment about that seeming disconnect, Stone pointed to a Truth Social post from Trump that promoted the therapeutic benefits of hemp-derived CBD, signaling support for the types of products that could now be jeopardized under the new law. In a quote, "I kind of think the video he posted speaks for itself," Stone said, adding that Trump's signing of the 2018 Farm Bill that legalized hemp is among his greatest accomplishments. Todd, greatest hits. The hemp ban doesn't take effect for another year, leaving stakeholders somewhat hopeful that they can negotiate a deal to implement regulations addressing consumable cannabinoid products before then. But whether the president will proactively work to promote a regulatory approach instead of a blanket prohibition is yet to be seen. In a quote, the president was forced to sign the bill. Does away with domestic hemp industry, which created thousands of jobs, and I think created some additionally beneficial products for people, Stone said in an episode of his WABC radio show, The Roger Stone Zone, on Sundays. But the House and Senate Republicans passing a bill which reopened the government, it was the president essentially being required to sign it. I found that really, really troubling, he said. On the radio show, Stone also quoted parts of his blog post about the overarching issue, which included a call for a regulatory framework for hemp that eliminates synthetic cannabinoids and other sketchy products from the market. Congress has decided to solve a problem regarding hemp by very sweeping language for an unexpected power grab and a must-pass spending measure, he said. Folks, this is not regulation. This is prohibition by the back door. He's exactly right. Stone isn't the only one sounding the alarm about the potential ramifications of the hemp provisions that the president signed as part of the spending bill. And for example, the Democratic governor of Kentucky said last week that the hemp industry is an important part of the economy that deserves to be regulated at the state level rather than federally prohibited, as Congress has moved to do. Meanwhile, a leading veterans organization is warning congressional leaders that the newly approved blanket ban on consumable hemp products could inadvertently slam the door shut on critical research. While many hemp stakeholders say the ban would effectively eradicate the industry, even applying to non-intoxicating CBD products that people use for medical reasons, there's their latest hope that they can strike a compromise deal with lawmakers before the prohibition is implemented this time next year. And lawmakers such as Senator Chris Van Hollen, a Democrat from Maryland, also said that window could provide an opportunity to advance legislation to create an alternative regulatory model for consumable hemp products. And there were attempts by GOP lawmakers in both chambers to strike the hemp prohibition provision, but the proposed amendments from Senator Rand Paul, Republican from Kentucky, and Thomas Massie, Republican from Kentucky, did not make it into the final package. And on a side note, Paul was joined by 22 Democrats and notably anti-marijuana Senator Ted Cruz in voting against a motion to table the amendment to prevent the ban, but the majority ultimately quashed it. And Massie tried to revive the push in the House with his own amendment mirroring Paul's, but the prospects of its adoption were dubious at best, as there was generally consensus within the Republican caucus that the spending bill should advance without further modifications that could have it sent back to the Senate. You guys. Well. I happen to agree with Roger Stone on all of this. Trump basically got his arm twisted into signing this. I know he didn't want to sign it, but he definitely did want to get the government going on. And at the same time, he shouldn't stop the government from being able to be re-implemented just on the sake of cannabis's back. I happen to agree with that as well, with that decision. And I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this.
Is there anything that Roger Stone says that you don't agree with?
100%. Plenty of stuff. But this stuff I totally agree with.
Got it.
Yep.
Yeah, he was forced.
He was forced. Todd, how would you say that he wasn't?
Dude, if he's such a tough guy and such the leader of men, how can he be forced to do anything?
Because he wants to do the best for the people overall, and he got forced into signing it because of the fact that these rhino Republicans,
because he's got no backbone, he's got no policies of his own.
Stop it, Todd.
Yeah, I don't know why he couldn't easily just say, "Hey, guys, I'm not going to sign this with this in it. Take it out, and we got a deal." He does it with everything else.
Trump's not going to say that for cannabis. Difficult. He's not going to say that for hemp, especially when people like Kim Rivers are lobbying for these types of things to happen. Why would he say that?
Oh, exactly. So he didn't want to do it.
He didn't want to do it. That's why he didn't say it.
Man. So that means he more agrees with it and is like, okay, I'm
funding by
corrupt,
the police.
I don't know. You guys. I'm not buying all that, but that's cute. That's a cute kind of little synopsis from you guys.
Okay.
Did you have any thoughts on this?
You stand for something, you stand for it all the time, not just some of the time.
I feel you. I'm with you. I totally understand that. I get that, but
I know it's not a priority to him, but
it's not exactly.
It was his bill, as Stone said. He created it.
Yeah.
1 minute he's a tough guy, next minute he's getting pushed around by Congress.
Oh, you're so funny.
His own party in Congress.
His own party.
Mm-hmm.
His own party. He was forced to. He was tied down.
He was tied.
And forced to.
His hands were tied. I agree with that. His hands were tied.
Huh? How did he sign it? With his hands tied.
With his feet, with his toesies. Toesies, Todd.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, I agree with it. I hope that they can make some changes within the next year or two, and change the whole industry.
And I agree with Brian Dombrowski in the chat. He says, stop. We are not important enough to keep the government closed. And I totally agree with that. We are not important enough.
And there is still that, 12 months, and he is a negotiator.
Yep, that's right. And Todd, Todd, my prediction is that cannabis is going to be the October surprise next year.
I know.
Right before the election. Just mark my words.
I guess you can say, it's not important
too many
enough,
conservative religious people that don't want it passed.
They need to go back and read.
Definitely his base.
And then they need to go back and read Genesis, in the book of Genesis.
They've read it hundreds of times, and they still don't like gays, and they still don't like marijuana.
Well,
and I don't think it's just as easy to say that not important enough to pass is to keep the government, to open the government, not important enough to not pass because it's already been going on, to keep the government shut down. I think it works both ways.
Interesting perspective there, Michael.
I think a government shutdown should be the senators, the congressmen, all of them. They should be the ones having their pay taken away. They should be the ones that should.
I support that.
And you want to see how fast people come together?
Yep. There actually was.
To me is a government shutdown. Not all their lackeys and below people below them. They work for us. If they can't get their shit together and the government has to shut down, they should be the ones that are being punished.
I don't know. During the last administration's government shutdown, I think it was President Trump who said, it's the president who has to bring people together. It's the president's fault if there's a shutdown. Unquote. But now defend it.
That's cute.
I still think it should still be them, the Congress and Senate that has their paychecks taken.
I believe
we agree with that.
True. Also, I agree with that.
Yeah, we all agree. We all agree on that. And there actually was some legislation that was introduced that actually would do that. But we'll see if that ultimately gets a vote or whatnot.
Get the GOP to vote on that. Come on.
Yeah, but the Democrats aren't going to vote on that because they want to fund all their other pet projects. Yeah, that's cute, Todd. Yeah. Cute. Well,
I think this article.
Yeah, we're going to keep this train rolling. We're going to roll right into attorney at law, Mr. Michael Minardi. Michael is an amazing attorney out in the great red state of Florida, where he helps cannabis advocates, cannabis businesses, even hemp businesses navigate the complex legal framework. You can find him at his own law office at Minardi Law. It is none other than Mr. Michael Minardi.
Good morning to everyone on the West Coast and happy high noon on the East Coast. We're going to continue on with a little Trump info.
Yeah.
Trump DOJ declines to file Supreme Court brief in marijuana company's case challenging federal prohibition. The Justice Department is declining the opportunity to file a brief on whether the U.S. Supreme Court should take up a case for marijuana businesses that are challenging the constitutionality of federal prohibition. In a filing submitted to the court on Monday, U.S. Solicitor General D. John Sawyer, who was appointed by President Trump, said simply, "This government hereby waives its right to file a response to the petition in this case unless requested to do so by the court." This comes about a month after the powerhouse law firm Boies Schiller Flexner LLP submitted a petition for a writ of certiorari from the court on behalf of their clients, a coalition of cannabis companies, who are arguing that the Commerce Clause of the U.S. Constitution precludes the federal government from enforcing criminalization laws against interstate, intrastate marijuana activity. Massachusetts-based business companies and industry leader Canada Provisions, Gayasa Cellars, Wiseacre Farms, and Verona Holdings are asking justices to reevaluate a landmark 2005 case, Gonzalez v. Reich, wherein the Supreme Court narrowly determined that the federal government could enforce prohibition against cannabis cultivation that took place wholly within California based on Congress's authority to regulate interstate commerce. A lead attorney representing the plaintiffs recently told Marijuana Moment that he's hopeful, albeit somewhat nervous, about the prospect of justices ultimately taking up the matter and deciding to address the key legal question about the constitutionality of federal cannabis prohibition. Time is of the essence, Josh Schiller said, noting the dramatic shift in public opinion in state laws governing cannabis. We think this is the right time for this case because of the need. The industry needs to get relief from the federal oversight at the moment. The petition company's petition to SCOTUS argues that the Rice decision was an aberration in the court's precedents in the Commerce Clause and necessary and proper clause and represents a drastic departure from the federalism principles those clauses embody. The ruling 2 decades ago permitted a dramatic intrusion on the exercise of the state's police powers, it says. The Controlled Substance Act, CSA, significance to the exercise of states' police powers is massive and even greater today than it was in Reich's time, when only 9 states had legalized marijuana, the petition says. 38 states have now decided that the health and safety of their citizens is better served by making marijuana available through regulated channels rather than prohibition. The CSA displaces those states' choices and imposes Congress's own views on intrastate policy. The serious federalism question raised by the intrusion warrant the court's attention now, as they did in Reich. The petition says that after the Reich decision was issued, the federal government was undermined the notion of any link between the CSA's interstate goals and its interstate prohibitions. Since 2004, Congress has barred enforcement against state-regulated medical marijuana, but not adult use, while leaving both prohibited under the CSA. State-regulated marijuana is therefore less regulated from a federal perspective than the least controlled substance, v. Schedule 5, in the CSA. The DOJ has taken non-enforcement even further, with the policy of not enforcing the CSA as either to state-regulated medical or adult-use marijuana. This long period of destitute has severed any link between controlling state-regulated marijuana and regulating interstate commerce, thereby considering the CSA's intrusion on the state's policy-making even more stark. The U.S. Appeals Court rejected the arguments of the state legal cannabis companies the firm is representing in May. It was one of the latest blows to the high-profile lawsuit following a lower court's dismissal of the claims, but it's widely understood the plaintiff's legal team has long intended the matter to end up before the 9 high court justices. 4 justices must vote to accept the petition. In order to accept it, the next step would have the Department of Justice file its initial brief, which had a due date on November 28th. It remains to be seen if the court will end up requesting a brief from the government now that it has declined to do so. It is not clear if SCOTUS will ultimately take up the case. One sign that at least some on court might be interested in the appeal is a 2021 statement from Justice Clarence Thomas, issued as the court denied review of a separate dispute involving a marijuana dispensary in Colorado. Thomas's comments at this time seemed suggested it would revisit Reich, a move that could upend federal prohibition. The statement pointed to policy developments since the earlier case was decided, such as handoff enforcement approach taken by the Department of Justice as more states legalize cannabis, and a congressional budget rider protecting state legal medical marijuana programs. Whatever the merits are right when it's decided, federal policy of the past 16 years have greatly undermined its reasoning. Thomas wrote describing the government's approach to cannabis enforcement as a half-in, half-out regime that simultaneously tolerates and forbids local marijuana use. Though federal law still flatly prohibits the interstate possession, cultivation, and distribution of marijuana, the government post-writes mixed signals on its views, continuing the strange, basic principles of federalism and concepts conceals traps of the unwary. The initial complaint in the current case, known as Canna Provisions v. Bondi, filed in the U.S. District Court of Massachusetts, argued that government's ongoing prohibition under the Controlled Substance Act was unconstitutional because Congress in recent decades had dropped the assumption that federal court control of state regulation of marijuana is unnecessary. So this goes on a little bit more. So we should see sometime whether or not the Supreme Court will take up this case or other drugs related to this, like they have taken up already the federal prohibition regarding marijuana or other drugs from buying or possessing firearms. The Trump administration has argued that the policy targets a category of persons who pose a clear danger for misuse of firearms and should be upheld. So they did in that case file a response and a writ to the general. So it's interesting that they did not in this case. It really puts the Supreme Court more in the position of relying on the arguments made by the plaintiffs in this case as to whether or not they will take it up. I think it could be extremely interesting if they do take it up, whether or not it does affect the scheduling of cannabis outside of what Trump is doing, or whether or not it puts more pressure on the Trump administration to move more quickly on rescheduling. But interesting turn of events. It's a half in, half out, just like with Trump's policy on marijuana laws throughout the country. And to me, it's kind of contradictory to the hemp laws and the court rulings on hemp, because they have ruled that there is no federal preemption on hemp and being able to sell products in interstate commerce, etc. But there is on interstate commerce of cannabis. So the same plant is kind of being treated differently in the two different circumstances.
Interesting, Michael. So I'm guessing that this is part of their strategy to not respond, so then that way there's a less of an argument for the Supreme Court when they take this up for consideration. Is that kind of the strategy with this?
So no, if anything, usually what happens is they file a reason or a statement why the Supreme Court shouldn't take it up, right? So now the court is just left with, well, they're not responding, so they really have no opinion on it. So it's entirely up to us as to what to do and whether or not we support, the challenges and the statements made in the petitioner's brief only in making that determination. So it's really a very unusual move. So
this would be a win then for the cannabis industry if this is able, because I think
I would consider this a win.
Okay, good. Look at that. We got a win today,
this
Todd.
Would be a positive.
Todd, we got a win. We got something we can celebrate today, Todd.
No answer is an answer.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that it's very clear, their answer.
I think you're right. I think they're starting to see read the writing on the wall, and they're like, hey, you know what? This may be the best way for us to combat that spending bill, is just not to respond to this lawsuit.
Right.
What do you think about that, Todd?
I think not responding certainly speaks volumes, but I think it's lazy lawmaking.
Oh, it's lazy lawmaking. I knew you'd have a poo-poo on this. You know what I'm saying? Todd.
Ultimately, they're leaving that decision up to the Supreme Court to make those determinations. And whether or not they wrote a brief or not, that would still be ultimately up to the decision of the Supreme Court whether or not to accept it or not.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if the Supreme Court does take this case up, this and the gun rights case. You know what I mean? And we'll have two cannabis cases in the Supreme Court. You know what I mean? During the same session, that would be really, really interesting. We could get two big wins right away.
I don't know about that. Kavanaugh likes beer more than he likes weed, so I'll just say, what about the beer? What about the beer?
Kavanaugh is a fundamental constitutionalist, bro. I think he would side.
Except when it comes to abortion.
Stop it. I mean, because abortion is murder, Todd. Just is what it is.
Murdering what?
It's murder. Murdering
goo that's
life.
in a
murder.
It's
It's not just a goo, bro. It's a human life, bro. It's human life. Easy there. You were that gooiness at one point.
I was.
Yeah, exactly. No one aborted you. So are you?
I was not
advocating for other people to be aborted.
I'm advocating for people to make their own decision about their own bodies.
Well, that's a big difference in what you're saying and advocating for abortion. Yeah, it's a big difference. It's a big difference.
Wow.
Huge difference. Yeah.
Is it different, Michael?
Yeah.
It's a big difference.
This thing's a cannabis show, not an abortion show.
It's a big difference. And on that,
that's what I was thinking. Yeah. Let's talk weed.
And on that, we're going to roll into our next commercial, and we are going to be right back.
Every legend has a humble beginning.
In world news, leaders are gathering today for the annual summit.
I want to tell you something, Che. The government is watching us through the television.
Oh, John.
Look, right there. They're trying to hack into my TV box. We're still not able to hack into the TV box, sir.
Ha! But they can't.
I've rebuilt the entire electronic system, and it sends and receives signals through quantum phase space. They'll never get in. Engage target.
In other news, local authorities are investigating a series of strange atmospheric phenomena reported by residents.
Ma'am, we're with the federal government. We need to ask you some questions.
John?
Is there a problem? We've been trying to penetrate your TV box for over 6 months. I told you they were trying to watch us through the TV, but you didn't believe me. We can't get in, and to be frank, we have no idea what you've created. Yeah, that's the point. It's called privacy. You know what the Fourth Amendment guarantees? All we know is that we can't get inside. We want to know if you can create one for us.
QUX. Even the government wants one.
Oh, yeah. Stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you smash that like button. I know we'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate it. And YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show, you can read directly on our website at www.9news.com.
Introducing QUX Pay, or simply the Pay app.
Where you can pay like it's nobody's business.
Because it isn't. It's what everyone's been clamoring for. It's finally here.
Secure every payment. Your data stays private. QUX will never sell your data for profit, period. Pay friends, family, contacts instantly. No hidden fees. No limits. Spend on the move.
With this patented technology, you can use debit, credit, bank transfers, cash cards, and even crypto completely offline.
Amounts transferred through the Pay app reach their destination instantly. Transfers in a flash. As quick as sending a text. No more waiting around like crypto. Are you ready for the future of payments? The state of the art for money is finally here.
Data privacy and security protocols trusted by militaries and banks worldwide. QUX Pay, the Pay app.
Available as an app and point of sale system, personal and corporate accounts available. Go to QUXPay.com and start using the Pay app today.
And we're back.
And we are back, you guys. And we are going to roll right into Mr. Todd Denkin. Todd is a creative storyteller. Oh, yes, that he is. He's also a Telly Award-winning director and producer with over 35 years of extensive experience in television, film production. And he's been featured expert on various cannabis panels, TV shows, and news programs across the country. And he has been interviewed and quoted in numerous blogs, newspapers, and magazines. And you can also find him here every Tuesday at High at Night News. He also co-authored the book Money Matters, and Todd now hosts Becoming the King of Pot on YouTube and other streaming platforms everywhere you get your streaming services. It is none other than the golden voice himself, Mr. Todd Denkin.
And the crowd goes wild.
Yes.
Thank you, Jason. And please, everybody, check out Becoming the King of Pot.
Yes.
On YouTube or wherever you catch your podcast. Hello. Shameless plug.
Yes.
Well, more stories about the orange guy.
Yeah.
Federal marijuana enforcement sparks outcry as lawmakers and advocates respond. Today, we bring you the latest on a growing controversy surrounding federal marijuana enforcement under the current administration. Debate intensified following recent remarks from Wyoming's U.S. Attorney Smith, who described marijuana use as, quote, a public safety hazard. Smith, nominated for his position by the president in July and serving in an acting capacity since August, faces mounting criticism as his comments and actions ignite fierce opposition from both lawmakers and advocacy groups. Critics argue that federal authorities are focusing on misplaced priorities, especially when the nation faces more pressing concerns. One advocate, responding to Smith's recent press release, accused the administration of allowing rigid ideology to cloud sound legal judgment, raising questions about Smith's fitness for the role. There are far greater threats to Wyoming residents than adults passing a joint around a campfire miles from civilization, said the advocate. Paul Armentano, deputy director of NORML, added to the chorus of criticism questioning whether minor marijuana prosecutions on federal lands were truly reduced under the previous administration. He called the Justice Department's new direction inappropriate and misguided, pointing out that nearly half of all U.S. states have now legalized cannabis possession. Armentano noted that most Americans believe cannabis should no longer be a crime. People don't want federal resources spent on these misplaced priorities, especially during challenging economic times in this administration. Many critics say the administration's policy appears at odds with Jeffrey Epstein's best friend, President Trump, in his own campaign remarks. During his campaign, the convicted felon stated, quote, "We do not need to ruin lives and waste taxpayers' dollars arresting adults with personal amounts of marijuana on them," unquote. With this in mind, some lawmakers are demanding clarity and a more consistent approach from federal authorities. Meanwhile, the White House has confirmed that the notice of proposed rulemaking to reschedule marijuana, initiated in May of 2024, is still underway, with all policy and legal requirements currently under review. The president has previously voiced support for rescheduling marijuana, expanding banking access for cannabis businesses, and even backed a Florida adult legalization initiative, all 4 votes. Although that effort was ultimately unsuccessful. When asked about the rescheduling progress in August, the president commented, quote, "We are only looking at that. A very complicated subject," and suggesting it's way too early to predict an outcome. In parallel, senior White House staffers from the Biden administration have recently shared new details about their involvement in mass marijuana pardons and the cannabis rescheduling process, highlighting the extent of their participation in broader clemency. These revelations have drawn increased scrutiny from Republican lawmakers who argued that the issue remains unresolved and deserves urgent attention. As the marijuana rescheduling proposal continues to await action, some Republicans in Congress are urging the orange alleged rapist to advance reforms. One lawmaker, in a lighthearted jab, suggested that the prior administration, quote, "must not have been able to find the auto pen in time to complete the cannabis reform it had started." Adding another layer to the debate, the president recently posted a video on his Truth Social platform promoting the health benefits of cannabis. He went so far as to propose covering CBD therapy under Medicare. Once they cut Medicare out of the system, then yeah, it should be covered for sure. And calling it the most important senior health initiative of the century. As the controversy continues to unfold, all eyes remain on Washington, where lawmakers, advocates, and administration officials grapple with the future of federal marijuana policy. And we will keep you updated as new developments arise right here on High at 9 News. So, Jason,
yes,
this new Wyoming attorney Smith says we shouldn't be able to smoke pot.
Well, first of all,
federal areas.
Well, first of all,
you say what?
I say you're actually not supposed to be able to smoke on federal territory. That has always been the situation, Todd. Like, nothing has changed.
You okay with that?
Yeah, I have no problem with that. That's always been a rule of the game. People have always got arrested if you're in a national park with cannabis. That's always been a thing because they're enforcing federal law. You're on federal property. I mean, come on, you know this in Vegas. I mean, all the times in casinos and whatnot, they enforce federal law in those types of places as well against people with cannabis. So, like, it's not like this is like some new policy all of a sudden that was like never here before. Okay. And so the fact that he's just restating this has always been the policy. Even under Biden, it was the policy. And the fact that they want to talk about the pardons that Biden did. And like, the reality is that the pardons that Biden did is absolutely 0 people got out of jail. Big fat goose eggs, Todd. Big fat goose eggs about people that got out of jail from that. So,
and only criminals are pardoned by Trump. Like, right. Only criminals.
Well, I mean, speaking of the fact that you're talking about, backing up Biden, he pardoned the biggest criminal of them all, Fauci, who created one of the biggest atrocities on the human human race of all time.
That?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, he was all behind that. Yeah, 100% he was, Todd.
Yeah, he created the COVID epidemic?
He did. He did.
Bro, you have way too much of that Kool-Aid running through your veins.
Oh, I love Kool-Aid, bro. It's so good.
But
throw
Attorney
extra
Smith
sugar in there.
described marijuana as a public safety hazard. You're good with that?
I have no problem with that. It's Wyoming, Todd. It's Wyoming. They don't even have they don't have a program there at all. That's always been
so
the
is marijuana
case.
A public safety hazard, Jason?
It could be in Wyoming. It could be in Wyoming.
Michael,
I'm not a Wyoming voter.
You're hearing all of this.
I'm not a Wyoming voter, Todd. You know, it's up to the people of Wyoming to change their policy if they want to have something different.
Okay.
Who am I to tell them this?
Well, regardless of whether or not they want to change their policy, the facts are the facts. You can't say with a straight face it's a public safety problem compared to all the other issues that we have in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it is in Wyoming, Michael. Maybe it is in Wyoming.
What qualifies, though? What qualifies as these problems? What do these cannabis?
How to protect the kids?
Well, I think what qualifies as the problem is the fact that people are having to stop and do enforcement on this, and it's taking their time out of their day from doing actual real work. That's the problem.
He's encouraging.
That's the problem.
Encouraging.
I understand that's what he's doing, Todd. I understand that's what he's doing. I understand.
Well, you're for it or you're against it? Which one is?
Well, I'm just stating that, like, for the fact that people are going to act like they're outraged by this statement is just totally ridiculous and gaslighting people, when in Wyoming that has always been the state of affairs. And so why people are getting all emotionally triggered because of this is just totally asinine to me.
Yes.
You know, if this was in a state,
both sides of the argument, and that's what's confusing to me.
a coin has a heads, it has tails. You know what I'm saying, Todd? You know what I mean?
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Just call me 50 Cent.
Yeah. 50 cent.
Or even a silver dollar. I'm good with that too.
I don't even know what I believe in.
Yeah. I know.
Call me 50.
I know exactly what I believe in, and I believe in, if you're in Wyoming, make sure you're not getting caught with cannabis if you happen to have any in it, because otherwise you're going to FAFO, and that's just what it is.
I believe the children are the future. If you teach them well and let them lead the way.
I'm with that too. Rest in peace,
all
Michael
about
Jackson.
Education, man.
Without a doubt. Well, that was a proper gaslighting right there, Todd. That was fun. And on that, we're going to roll into our final commercial, and we are going to be right
gaslighting.
back. Yeah. I just ordered the summertime strawberry salad when added steak on top here at Anna's. Make sure you do the same thing, too, next time you're in downtown Long Beach. Come on down and check out Anna's joint on the 400 block of Pine Street. They have amazing selection of beers, foods, and when you come down here to Anna's, you can even challenge me to a game of shuffleboard if you want to lose. Did you get that? So, next time you're in downtown Long Beach on Pine Avenue, make sure you stop by Anna's Joint on the 400 block. Not only do they have Anna's Joint, this restaurant and bar, but they also have the amazing deli next door, and then next door to that they have a very exotic flower shop. You may want to stop by and say hi. Oh, yes, and we are back, and we are going to roll right in to Miss Liz Quinn. Liz is a senior cannabis advocate who became passionate when she found herself in a very overwhelming cannabis industry with no help or education. Now, as a senior super stoner, she is lighting up the way, bringing education to seniors and bringing senior awareness to the cannabis community as the fastest and largest growing demographic in the industry. She represents the new target audience is none other than Miss Liz Quinn. Yes.
And the crowd.
Hey, team.
Know it. Good morning.
Good morning over on the West Coast and good afternoon over on the East Coast. We're going to talk about RFK Jr. and his using psychedelics.
Excellent. Yeah.
Don't anybody come at me saying... Liz is saying RFK Jr.'s. No, I'm just reporting what has already been stated.
Yeah.
RFK still uses psychedelics. Book from journalist who allegedly had an affair with him implies She wrote a book. It's coming out in early December. She never uses his name, but they were allegedly, bumping uglies, and he was telling her and, things he had done and still did. So let's get on to this. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the head of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, reportedly still used psychedelics despite being otherwise sober. A forthcoming book from journalists who allegedly had a romantic relationship with him implies. Kennedy has extolled the therapeutic potential of psychedelics both as a 2024 Democratic presidential candidate and in his capacity as President Donald Trump's health secretary. And he's been candid about his personal history with drug addiction that led him to become sober. But if the account from Olivia Nuzzi's book, American Canto, is accurate, he's apparently made an exception for psychedelics. Nuzzi doesn't explicitly name Kennedy in the book, instead referring generally to a politician with whom she had a mostly digital affair while covering his presidential campaign in 2023. But the timeline and details strongly indicate that Kennedy is the unnamed politician, given what's been reported about their entanglement, according to the New York Times. The journalist wrote that Kennedy, at least at the time, continued to use psychedelics, the newspaper reported, after receiving an advance copy of the book, which comes out in early December. The article doesn't provide much detail on which psychedelics he was allegedly using, but it notes that he told Newsies that he's used the potent drug DMT. I don't even know what the hell that is, but we'll keep going. She writes that despite being sober for decades, the Times reported, Kennedy told her that he still uses psychedelics and even smoked dimethyltryptamine, or DMT, a powerful drug which makes people are known to have what feels like near-death experience. Sounds like a fun night. Marijuana Moment reached out to HHS for comment, but a representative did not respond. While it would likely create controversy if it was the case that Kennedy continues to use psychedelics either medically or recreationally while serving in Trump's cabinet, given the status as Schedule I drugs under the Controlled Substance Act, the official hasn't been shy about his interest in reforming federal laws that's promoting their therapeutic use. As recently as last week, Kennedy, Vice President J.D. Vance, and the Food Drug Administration Commissioner and other Trump administration officials attended a Make America Healthy Again summit that featured a session dedicated to exploring psychedelic medicine. That's something for me. In June, Kennedy said his agency is absolutely committed to expanding research on the benefits of psychedelic therapy, and alongside of the head of the FDA is aiming to provide legal access to such substances for military veterans within the next 12 months. The secretary also said in April that he had a wonderful experience with LSD when he was 15 years old, which he took because he thought he'd be able to see dinosaurs, as portrayed in a comic book he was a fan of. Yes. Last October, Kennedy specifically criticized FDA under the prior administration over the agency's suppression of psychedelics and a laundry list of other issues that he said amounted to a war on public health that would end under the Trump administration. And there you have it. I have a lot of feelings about this. First off, I applaud that he is passionate about the psychedelics and he's pushing for it. And I think they will be very helpful to veterans and others. However, it just shows he's just pushing his own agenda. Where's the cannabis in this? Where is the hemp? These psychedelics are not plants. You just don't walk by an LSD plant. or a DMT plant.
You actually do walk by DMT plants.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I know nothing about it,
yeah.
so you can fill me in later.
Yeah.
And you know, is he still using them? And
of course he is.
I think, you know, psychedelics have a much greater and deeper cerebral effect than any cannabis. Hands down.
That is true. For sure.
You know, so do you want somebody in a car that's, you know, tripping balls, or, you know, somebody who's waiting at the stop sign for it to turn green to get to 7-Eleven? Either way, I think you're a little safer with somebody who is stoned as opposed to somebody who's tripping. And I think they need to, you know, before it's like they jumped over weed to get right to, you know, his agenda, the psychedelics. And while it will turn out to be a good thing, I still think it's pretty shitty that that's, you know, that's his only agenda. And that's all I have to say. I think.
Well, interesting.
Well, you're shocked that he is going after his own agenda? What? How can you be shocked at that?
Yeah, it just proves what we already knew. You know, that's it. But it's just so blatant, and especially now.
Well, you know, here's the thing. First of all, we have to consider the source. The source, if I'm correct, is some stripper or something, someone that he was having some type of an extramarital affair with,
some
correct?
Stripper.
No, she's a journalist.
She's a journalist. Okay. And then they were bumping uglies, right? I think was the word you used.
Yep.
Bumping uglies. Yeah.
That would be correct.
So I wonder how credible.
Allegedly.
First of all. Yeah, I wonder how credible
Allegedly.
she is. First of all, I just wonder, you know, because there is a lot of ops that go out. You know what I'm saying? In regards to this, I wonder what Cheryl's going to have to say as in regards with this as a response. That's what I really want to know. What does Cheryl have to say? And you know, if RFK is using mushrooms, I mean, more power to him. That's fantastic that he's using that
exactly
to help him. That's fantastic. He's with the plant-based movement overall, and you know, he's a part of that whole Maha agenda. And I'm all you know, I don't have a problem with really, you know, a lot in the story overall, you know.
No, I don't either. It's just I feel like the cannabis industry has just been totally bypassed.
Well, you know,
how to protect the kids.
Yeah, but you know, and I agree with your points. You know, I would definitely rather be riding in a car with someone that smokes cannabis as opposed to someone that's you know what I'm saying, that's frying or whatnot. But in regards with your question, detramethyltryptamine, DMT. So that is Liz, that is the spirit molecule. Okay, and that spirit molecule actually occurs twice in the brain. Once when you're born, and once when you die. And that DMT molecule is the one molecule that is in every single living organism on the entire planet. So it is in every single plant, it is in every single animal, and it is in every single person.
And taking it
will have you see things that you never saw before. It will change your frequency and show you a whole nother world outside of this parallel universe that we happen to be trapped in.
We call reality.
Yes.
And it seems that there's so much more approval and less stigma, and it just seems to be more promising legalization and everything else, to criminalize the whole bit.
Well, the thing with that,
because pot laid
marijuana laid the groundwork.
Well, for you know, all kinds of plants.
Well, at the same time, go ahead, Michael.
I was going to say there's a few different reasons for that. I think, you know, number one, you know, psychedelics were in the 60s early on being used by and being studied by psychologists and psychiatrists for
and the CIA.
mental health disorders pretty extensively. MIT did studies on people doing acid and how it could enhance their problem-solving skills. So I think that, you know, again, we spoke about this a little bit the other day. There's not 100 years of stigmas against psychedelics like there is cannabis. I mean, we know that it's clearly moving faster. I mean, I can't even imagine cannabis even coming close to getting fast-tracked you know, for certification by the FDA, which it has, MDMA has, LSD has, I believe, I'm not sure about LSD, and psilocybin has, because the therapeutic properties of it that they're showing are just so amazing that it's just hard to ignore when we're in such a mental health crisis in this world right now. Whereas cannabis, you still I think have a lot more stigmas and people against it. I don't even see religious people really coming out against psychedelics as much as they do about cannabis. Yet they're both, you know, given to us from our creator of this world. So I think it's that's the reason why. And I think really the veterans have had a huge impact on it because they're so out in forefront and how miraculous, and through one therapy session with ayahuasca or high dose mushrooms or, you know, some of these other natural products that they're immediately, you know, cure almost from their PTSD symptoms, if not for extended periods of time. So I think it's really amazing, and I think it's great that, you know, we have someone at the top that's actually experiencing them and understands these products, as opposed to lawmakers who, you know, are still in the idea that cannabis doesn't have medical uses because they haven't seen a family member have to use it for a medical condition that saved their lives. You know, so I think it's awesome to have someone out there with the knowledge.
And you know, I'm not trying to downplay him or the psychedelics at all. I just think that it needed to have inclusion with cannabis. Cannabis has a lot of, you know, good medical effects. Yes, there's not 100 years of research on it. But again, you know, it's the passion that we all have.
Yeah, but it's 100 years of bad press. You know, there's 100 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Bad marketing.
100 years of bad press. Oh.
Psychedelics luckily don't have that hurdle.
Yeah, they didn't have the whole Reefer Madness campaign coming out on it. They just had, you know what I'm saying, just had the CIA using experiments on people and whatnot in the 60s and 70s, and you know what I'm saying. All of a sudden, you got all these hippies running around tripping on acid. You know what I'm saying? Just yeah.
Well,
no.
Not only that, but
don't forget
I think cannabis has really softened the market for acceptable.
Well, you know, and
mainstream usage of these.
You are right about that, and I think that from the regulatory standpoint, psychedelics is an easier pill to swallow because it's a single compound, as opposed to where cannabis is this multifaceted of all these different compounds, this cocktail that is in every different plant varietal, and so and that way they're not able to create a synthetic version of it as like they can with psychedelics, which is a single compound, and that's why it's more accepted. That's my logic behind that.
And it's something the drug companies can get, you know, get
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Hands on.
That's exactly why I said that. Exactly that single compound issue. What were you going to say, Michael?
Yeah, but I don't think the drug companies like it if they have to have one dose and can be okay for 6 months. So they're screwed up somehow. But you know, it's just the psychedelics, especially with the John Hopkins studies. There's just been so many more legitimate studies that that have been accepted on top of it, and that I think, you know, we although we have way more studies on cannabis than pretty much anything else, so many of them are ignored and not, you know, actually legitimized. So it's very interesting.
Well,
yeah, a new study also just came out that said that psilocybin extends your life. So it's literally become the fountain of youth. Say it restores your pills.
Oh, it restores parts of the brain, right? That slows down in older age.
That's correct.
Yeah, I have heard that. That
just came out like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think we covered that over here at INI News. I do remember a story like that. Well, speaking of things we cover over here at INI News, I have one final story for you guys. Are you guys ready for this? You're gonna love this. This is a great story to end the show on today. In a cheeky video, a Columbus council president invoices the Statehouse for marijuana tax cash. That's right. Columbus City Council President Shannon Hardin is invoicing the Ohio General Assembly for $8 million, you guys. In a video posted on Instagram on November 18th, Hardin called out state legislators for not releasing millions of dollars in tax revenue from marijuana sales meant for the city governments. In the video, Hardin walked from City Hall to the Statehouse with a paper invoice. And in an Instagram post, it reads, in 2019, I helped champion the decriminalization of marijuana in Columbus. 5 years ago, Ohio and 70% of Columbus voters said yes to legalizing it and taxing it to support critical needs like housing, homelessness, and safety. Today, I submitted an $8 million invoice to the Statehouse because Columbus has waited 2 years for the funding that voters overwhelmingly approved for us. Our cities and our nonprofits need these dollars, and our residents voted for these dollars. But for 2 years, the Statehouse has been subverting voters' will by holding them up. It's time for the state to release the money so we can put it into work for our community. And in a quote from the video, he says, it's been 2 years since Issue 2 passed, and we still haven't seen a dime of the dollars promised to us under this law, Hardin said. Voters were overwhelmingly clear about what they wanted and where this revenue should go. But right now, they're being ignored because the Statehouse has failed to uphold its end of the deal. Issue 2, which Ohio voters approved in 2022, legalized adult use marijuana for adults, and the issue set aside 36% of revenue generated by a 10% sales tax on adult use marijuana sales for municipalities with dispensaries. The state legislature has not released the money for local communities as lawmakers go back and forth over challenging the state's cannabis regulations, and the state is sitting on more than $30 million, including an estimated $8 million for Columbus alone, according to Hardin's office. An Ohio Senate Bill 56 would update the law around marijuana and release the funds, and it is currently in conference committee. Columbus has already budgeted for these funds last year, and the council created a separate fund with the intention of using this new revenue stream for marijuana from marijuana for human services and nonprofit organizations. And a media advisory sent out by Hardin's office pointed out these organizations are already facing financial strain because of federal government cuts, and says, and I quote, the state has benefited from marijuana revenue for more than a year, and while Columbus residents sit and wait, Hardin said, it doesn't have to be this way. I urge folks to call their representatives and to demand that they release these funds to support our city's most vulnerable residents. Well, look at that. State's trying to hold the cannabis funds. They're just trying to make some money off the interest, apparently. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this. I was just going to
say they should be invoicing for interest as well.
Exactly. $8 million bucks. The city of Columbus is due. Just, you think you walk that up to like the window where you pay a fine and say, hey, I'm here to collect. Can you imagine that, Todd?
No.
Yeah, but they need that interest.
Oh, they need
that's some serious interest.
They need that money.
Again, it just screams of Midwestern corruption.
It does. It does. Any final thoughts on this, Michael?
No, I just think it's exactly that. Them wanting to make money off of it and the question is, have they used it? Have they moved any of it to a general fund and starting to shift it off? Yeah. It's our government, they get these tax dollars and they use it how they see fit, not how the people want to see it used. So
yeah,
it's just another robbing of the people for tax dollars.
Yeah. Well, and on that note, thank you all for exactly. And thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. And big shout out to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry. Huge thank you to Catalyst for helping us keep the lights on over here, and thank you to our correspondents for being absolutely amazing. Thank you to Cannabis Sativa L for giving us a reason to do this every day, and thank you to Cloud Media Partners Elias and Gabriel. They're somewhere in the metaverse. And thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. We are America's #1 daily cannabis news show.